I'll keep this intro short, sweet, and to the point. Why do I hear boss music? Welcome back to Motorsport 101.
Are we going to clarify which boss music?
Oh, in this case,
it feels like crossing that line is like when the guitar drops in One Winged Angel from Advent Children.
Yeah, that works. That works indeed. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 621 of Motorsport 101. I'm your friendly neighbourhood host, Trey Harrison. Glad you could join us as ever for another double bill of podcast joy. I'm Dre. I'm joined as usual by RJ O'Connell and Cam Buckley. We'll say hi to them in a minute. But yes, this episode is going to be all about Formula One's United States Grand Prix in Austin. It's weird calling it the United States Grand Prix when we have 3 races in the US now. But here we are. This is the official one. This is the proper US Grand Prix, not the Vegas or Miami edition.
The first one after that whole ordeal went south back in Indianapolis.
Yeah, close enough. We'll go with that. So here's the proper United States Grand Prix. And, well, it was about as good a weekend as you could have asked for if you're Max Verstappen, who all of a sudden is within striking distance of actually turning this into a freeway title race. Isn't that fun? Well, it's not fun if you're from Woking. You've had a disastrous sprint and then a pretty anonymous Grand Prix. We'll have to iron that out as we go along because we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about McLaren's policy and hopefully figuring out what they're going to intend to do with 5 races to go in the championship. Charles Leclerc, still him. Williams, a messy bitch, but still a pretty good weekend on the whole. Hulkenberg points is back in your life for the first time in 6 Grand Prix. We'll also talk about Alpine and arguably the worst team orders call in the history of Formula One. This is not an exaggeration. It's laughably stupid. Just like most of Alpine, to be honest. And we can, but we can't talk about a certain TV deal in North America in regards to Formula One's North American future. More on that at the end of the show. But, RJ, how you doing, first and foremost? How was the latest work trip?
Well, I'm glad I'm back home, at least. Somehow, riding in a 1 of 62 track day special immediately before the Indy 8 hours was not the scariest ride that I had all weekend at Indianapolis.
How could anything be scarier than that?
I'm a nervous flyer in the year 2025 in the United States of America. I'll let you draw your own conclusions.
Say no more. Cam, how you doing?
Doing great. I'm doing fantastic.
Apple stock on the up by any chance?
Might be. Almost as high as the stock in Max Verstappen's 5th consecutive title bid.
Yep. So all I'm saying is we watch these races on Discord normally, and Cam wasn't with us at the time because I believe he was at work or during that Sunday.
No. I was watching it in peace.
Yes,
is the best way to describe it.
And then when you rolled up, you immediately started talking a whole leap of shit.
Yes. You know the point of a horror movie when the thing that's trying to get the protagonist starts banging down the door?
Oh, yeah.
I think the bolts are starting to fall out.
He's probably not wrong, annoyingly. It's the classic Falcon line. He's out of the line, but he's right. So, yes, we'll break all of that down in the next hour or so. But first of all, places you can find us, of course. We're on youtube.com/motorsport101. We're on facebook.com/motorsport101. We're on Twitter at motorsport_101. If you want to follow us on Blue Sky, you can personally. Dre Harrison, RJ O'Connell, and C Buckley917.bsky.social. You can also follow us for video highlights of the show on our Instagram page, Instagram/motorsport101pod, or our TikTok account, M101_podcast. You can follow us on there as well. All the details will be on our website, motorsport101.com, where you can get written reviews. I put a big one up for this weekend because that was a lot to talk about, boy. From that and from MotoGP's latest Phillip Island race, which we'll talk about on the next episode. Maybe not quite the classic we were all hoping for, but hey, a new winner's always fun, right? So we'll talk about that on our next episode. And of course, if you really like us, you can back us financially on Patreon, patreon.com/motorsport101. $5 gets you early access to all of our content before it goes live with the public. You can upgrade to the $10 tier. If you can listen to these episodes live as they're being recorded, if you like. We got a whole heap of people in here. We got Raptor, Jason, we got Emma's in here, Kira's in here, Vic's in here, Rory's in here, everybody's in here. It's a fun time. So you can listen to them with like-minded, crazy motorsport fans if you back us at the $10 level. It's a good time. Also, you get access to our Discord server if you're that way inclined as well. So all of those perks and a whole lot more on our website, and of course all that and a whole bunch of other stuff. Right, without further ado, let's get into the United States Grand Prix.
This really could actually be the weekend the pendulum swung in the 2025 Formula One World Championship, because the story began on Saturday during the U.S. Grand Prix. Freshly extended to 2034, by the way. But Saturday, Max Verstappen took his 11th sprint pole of the year and comfortably led through turn 1, while behind him, Oscar Piastri tried an aggressive cutback into a 3-wide at the apex, and it led to contact between him, Nico Hulkenberg, Fernando Alonso, and Lando Norris. And everyone except Hulkenberg was out, and with Verstappen resisting a George Russell dive bomb, once the field got going again, Verstappen would go on to win, cutting the championship deficit down to 55 points, heading into Sunday's United States Grand Prix proper. It was much the same. Max got away early as Charles Leclerc jumped into second on the reverse soft-medium strategy and had to hold off Norris, and by the time the McLaren driver got through, it was nearly half distance. Max had over 10 seconds in hand. It was just a lead. It was a lead that the Dutchman would hold for the distance. Norris would have to pass Leclerc again with just 6 laps left. Verstappen wins the Grand Prix after winning the sprint, and Oscar Piastri could only manage 5th, a lonely 5th in the Grand Prix, which means Max Verstappen, with 5 rounds left in the Formula One World Championship, only trails Oscar Piastri by 40 points. And Lando Norris has cut the gap down to his teammate to 14. So first, let's talk about the McLaren angle. We always love to talk about the McLaren angle on the show now, don't we? We love that. But yeah, they played down Verstappen's chances after the weekend. Should they be concerned now?
Shall I go first on this one? See, the part of me is going yes, and part of me is going no. In the sense of, I actually liked the fact that Andrea Stella, after the race, was actually quite confident for once. Because normally, was like 2 or 3 rounds ago, McLaren was talking about crapping themselves, and Verstappen was like 100 points away. And now he's within 40, and they're like, no, the driver is in our own hands, and we're going to be the ones to potentially gain on his lead because we have tracks that are going to be in our favour later on. However, and it's kind of hard to ignore the elephant in the room here, Oscar Piastri has lost 64 points to Max Verstappen in the last 4 weekends. That is an unmitigated disaster. It's completely unacceptable that it's gotten even this close to the fact where people genuinely believe Max has got a chance. And normally I'd say 40 points out with 5 rounds to go. That would be too much for most mere mortals. But this is Max we're talking about here. And McLaren just needs to get their heads screwed on. I mean, they had won until the summer break, or until the first round after they got to Zandvoort. They'd won the last 5 in a row, and now they've gone winless in their last 4.
Were we just talking about this car having the potential to be remembered as one of the all-time greatest Formula One cars that has ever graced a motorsports venue?
Yeah, they won the Constructors' Championship 6 races early.
5. They had to kick it back around because of how bad it went. Yeah, and that's part of the problem. It would have been the fastest constructors win ever. It's now only the second fastest constructors win because Baku was a disaster for them. They lost so much ground on that weekend, it kicked the celebrations back a week. That's why they celebrated it in Singapore instead, without Piastri, because people love a good conspiracy. No, but this is because they won 12 out of the first 15 races this season, but now they've gone winless in 4, and Max has crept in because he's won 3 of those 4 they haven't won, and was second in the other. So, Max has now only dropped 14 points out of the last 133 available. This is when you play your least favorite racing game and the guy chasing you has hit the rubber band. They're now coming at you quick. And
oh God, it's Christ. Donkey Kong Jr. and it's Super Mario Kart.
Oh yeah. Hey, by the way, should we mention that Max Verstappen has won at the Mexico City Grand Prix or the Mexican Grand Prix 5 times?
Yeah, debatably his best track.
In the high altitude of the Autodromo in Manos Rodriguez.
He's even beaten he's had a couple of 2-for-1 specials when he beat Mercedes doing that in 2021 as well. He knows what he's doing.
It's like McLaren are putting together a textbook handwritten on how to fuck this up. Because when they've been bad, they've been horrible, like they were in Baku. And when they've been good, they just haven't been good enough to overcome Max and race trim. A huge element of that is that Red Bull basically redesigned the entire front wing and floor and engine cover between Monza and Singapore. And it's more or less fixed the vices of this car. McLaren were faster, probably by a little bit in race trim, but it didn't matter because Lando took half the race to get past Charles Leclerc.
It's not just a fast car, it's that it's kinder on its tires. Say it generally has a wider operating window, and I'm going to put aside my feelings about the second car in the team. At least in Max Verstappen's hands, that's a very, very good thing for him.
Yeah, it's cured that thing where the balance on the Red Bull would shift quite badly at low speed and turn it into kind of a lethargic car through slow speed turns. They were fine in Singapore. I would say that's fixed emphatically. It's always been the quickest car in high speed turns, even when they've been poor this year. It's the medium speed turns where McLaren makes all their money. And right now, they don't really have enough of an advantage over Red Bull to overhaul them there. Max put foots in him in qualifying, 3/10 on the field. And
that was the biggest surprise for me.
Yeah. Beat the field by a little bit in sprint qualifying, use the data from the sprint, and demolish the field in regular qualifying.
It's another thing Red Bull are really, really good at. They've done this many a time where they will take the data on a sprint weekend from the Saturday, they'll figure it out, they'll run laps in the sim, they'll make their tweaks, because remember, you're allowed, when a Parc Fermé reopens after the sprint race, and then was even quicker in qualifying than in race trim. Fun fact, Max Verstappen did the sprint pole, Grand Prix pole and win quad. He's the only man that's ever done that, and he's done it 4 times. Since
he was the fastest lap short of a Grand Slam on the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
He's in such good form that we already have people coming up with the lava that this run of Verstappen dominance is just so boring, like it's 2023 again.
Well, that particular person on the socials also, well, let's not reopen old wounds. Don't defend pedophiles. Anyway,
we're gonna get some emails.
It's okay. Don't defend pedophiles. It's never good. Yeah.
But enough about the United States government.
Hey.
Yes. Yes. We now go into a 5-race stretch where Max has won 5 times in Mexico. Now, last year, he unleashed pure Gran Terrorismo upon this field to try and stop Lando from getting through. If Red Bull can carry this across to Mexico, as they've just carried across 4 different weekends where they either won or probably could have won. Ooh, McLaren's got to keep their shit tucked.
Yeah. Sao Paulo's right after that, and that's another high-ish
What happened last
circuit.
Year? Well, maybe the drive of Verstappen's career?
Yeah.
It rained and Max beat the field's arse.
I'd say the only place where I think it could get a little dicey is Las Vegas, because we just don't have enough data.
Well,
I wouldn't be surprised if you won that
There is a wrench. There is a wrench in the works, and it's that Mercedes kicks ass in low temperature conditions. So pencil in a George Russell 30-second win.
And
problem is, Max needs those 7 points.
And not to mention, last year, like McLaren had their worst round of the year. Arguably, they were terrible in Vegas last season. Max wasn't much better, but he was still ahead of the McLarens.
But he was
better. Yeah, so we all know that the Mercs tends to run well in ultra cold conditions. Not even they can quite figure out why, but they'll get to that point. No, like, for me personally, look, if McLaren can take some reassurance, I still think Max probably needs to win 4 out of the last 5, at least, to win this championship. And Max hasn't got much of a margin for error here either. And
none of the 3 of them do.
But that's the beauty of it. None of them do. And Red Bull have had a much better reputation for execution over a race weekend in the last 2 or 3 years than McLaren has, who have often struggled when it comes to strategy and managing their drivers.
Trey, is there a safer pair of hands on this grid if the car is good enough and Max scoots out to an early lead?
Nope. He is the best race manager in Formula One now. If that Austin race was classic Verstappen, took advantage of a situation where Charles was compromised, having to block and defend from Lando Norris, pulled out a 9-10 second lead, and then just didn't look back. Like, Norris's pace was good once he was in open air. It was pretty much on the level of Max, maybe even a tenth or 2 quicker. But unfortunately, the race was lost at turn 1 for Lando because Charles got in front of him and he wasn't able to go with Max, and that's ultimately what cost him any shot of being able to go for the win. Norris's pace was good.
Yeah, once Charles was able to get ahead in that first stint, the only thing that was going to bring Lando back was probably a safety car.
And we didn't get one. It was a clean race, pretty much.
Mostly clean. Carlos Sainz did his best to have it not be a clean race. After getting a podium in the sprint.
The quietest podium
for
finish of
Williams.
The year.
Because it was in the sprint, dog. It's like we don't acknowledge the fact that Lewis Hamilton won one of these sprints back at Shanghai. We just think, man, aside from that, this year has been tough for him.
Well, that was the falsest of dawns it ever could have been for Ferrari, because, hey, this car finally came good. It only took 3/4 of the year. They actually had a good weekend, because Charles Leclerc might be the himmest him who ever himmed.
Yeah, look, I think it's lost in the shuffle because of the constant headaches you get when it comes to being a Ferrari fan and their obvious car-related struggles that we've had through 2025 and probably a fair few previous years. When they were not a contender, but Charles has been the face of that team now for over half a decade. But every once in a while, you get reminded that Charles Leclerc is one of the best drivers in the world, because that was a defensive shift of the gods to... He had no business holding off Lando as long as he did. He was on the soft tyre to start off with. The crossover point on that was around lap 12 or so, and he kept Lando behind him for a good nearly dozen laps more after that. It was remarkably impressive defensive driving, and it was the good and the bad from Lando Norris, in my opinion, all in one fell swoop, because the first stint he just couldn't find a way past him until Charles's tyres really were gone on Sector 1. I love how he set up the second stint overtake. The dive attempt at turn 1, which forced Charles to go defensive, but it also brought Lando in. They also brought Lando into play going through Sector 1 and put him about 4 tenths closer, and that's what set up the pass into turn 12. It was brilliant driving. I loved it. It was great tactical racecraft. Something you don't normally see from Lando. And yeah, it was just a good, clean, hard fight between the pair of them. And that made up most of the race, and it was great.
Yeah, I mean, really the shame as well is that, like, for Lando's race in the second stint, his race he had more or less quit on trying to get second place, but was able to back off and cool the tires, and right at about the same time, Leclerc's longer used mediums just completely spent themselves. He was out of rears by the end of the Grand Prix. Still, incredible shift from Charles. One day he'll go to a team worthy of his talents, is what I'll say. Because, my God, he is Ferrari's strongest soldier.
Not to make this about baseball, but is this like how Pittsburgh Pirates fans feel about, like, yeah, one day Paul Skeens is going to pitch for a real baseball team?
Yeah, it's like last year in the NFL when Myles Garrett handed in a transfer request from the Cleveland Browns, and the Browns fans were like, no, please go play for a contender. They were completely understanding. They were like, no, Myles has done his duty. Let him go play for an actual team.
And then what happened? He got more money from the Cleveland Browns, and they're still terrible.
Yeah,
because it's the Cleveland Browns, and the Browns are the factory of sadness. See you next Sunday.
Yeah,
that's right.
There's someone we haven't really talked about so far, though.
Who's that?
Oscar Piastri.
Yeah, it was just an anonymous weekend. And look, we know what happened in the sprint. Okay, we know that the funny happened in the sprint. Well, I was watching an entirely different race. We understand that, but where was the pace in the Grand Prix?
Nowhere. He was stuck behind George Russell early on, and then just drifted a little bit further back from him. We only really saw him.
He's stuck ahead of George Russell.
Yeah, on pit stops, but the only time we really saw him on the hard camera was the final lap of the race when he was trying to gun down Lewis Hamilton, who had a slow puncher on the final lap of the Grand Prix, and Oscar ran out of road, unfortunately, on that one. But at what point is it fair to say that Piastri's in a bit of a downturn run of form? Because ever since his last win in Zandvoort, I think he's been the second fiddle of the two McLaren drivers since then. Baku was dreadful. We all know why. Singapore, he was muscled out at turn 3, and even after Norris got in front, Piastri couldn't really come up with a counter. He was a few seconds back the entire time. Monza, Lando was comfortably ahead of Piastri, even before the wheel gun shenanigans and the forced swap. Lando was quicker. And in this race again, Lando ended up a comfortable second. Piastri was a pretty anonymous 5th.
That's the much bigger thing, is like, we bring it back to, as you like to put it, Dre, required run rate. Bring it back to cricket terms. Max's required run rate right now is 8 points. 8 points over Oscar. On current form, that is extremely doable, because Oscar's just been... It hasn't all been bad since the summer break, but it's been a lot more bad than good.
Generally speaking, hasn't he always been better this year at places where he was not good at last year? Which is why this weekend just kind of felt like...
It's just, it feels like he's mirroring the same kind of post-summer slump he had last year, only there's a much bigger spotlight on it because the McLaren is a much better car than it was last year, until maybe Monza. And he's leading the world championship. He's champion-elect right now. And so when you see that downturn in form where he's gone from just blowing the field out of the water, having a comfortable gap, and winning races... He was fighting with the Ferraris and the Mercs this weekend. To the point where Russell behind him was probably faster for most of the race. He just couldn't actually find a way around him. Once the tires went off a little here, it was very, very tough to pass.
I wonder how much of this is just down to the relative inexperience. We are still talking about a man with less than 60 career starts to his name. Lando's got twice the experience of him. Max has, got over 200 starts now in Formula One and has been in title fights before multiple times over in his career already. I wonder how much of this is just general inexperience. Oscar's never been in this scenario before where he's now competing for a world championship. He's been leading this world championship for 2/3 of the season now. at one point was 32 points in front. Now it's only 14. He's been off the boil for about 4 weekends now, relative to what we know Piastri can be. Because when he's at the front, he's a fantastic front runner. We've seen it for him many a times that he can be just as safe a pair of hands as Verstappen can when the car and the track is dialed in. Oscar's untouchable at times. But I do wonder if it's just the fact he's never been here before is what's starting to rattle him. A part of me also wonders, did we overrate the whole cool, calm, collected gimmick we gave Oscar Piastri, or was that just done? Was that done to spite Lando Norris? Because a lot of people just don't like that man. That's what I'm starting to think is happening here.
Yes and yes, because and it's the contrast to last year, right? Because it's almost like we're watching last year in reverse. Only the problem is Max Verstappen is going to, if he has the car, he's going to punish you. That is just a fact of life and has been for 4 years now. He has the car now. If Oscar has one more weekend like this, if that required run rate gets to 7, McLaren has to be sounding the alarms.
Which then gets to the other question we want to talk about. Are they now at the point where they just have to pick a number one driver? An actual number one driver, not we have 2 number one drivers, we let everybody fight, and whatever happens, happens, as long as you don't hit each other. Do they have to start putting all their weight behind Oscar now?
I think they've left it too late for that.
Lando's 14 points away.
It's weird because they won the Constructors. They still won it very early, but it was in the bag from about 8 or 9 rounds ago, really. They could have taken this decision earlier, and instead they've elected not to. They've gone for this happy fun times, we're going to try and be as fair as we can policy right now. And the drawback to that is, well, there's multiple drawbacks. Number one, what do you deem as a fair incident is always going to be up for debate. And how, that's always been open to interpretation, and it's probably led to more problems than it's worth. Cam?
Right. I mean, we heard at the start of this weekend in the press box that Lando had been punished internally. Not that we actually heard, but they made it a point to announce it to the press, that Lando had been punished for what happened in Singapore, which, we're in general agreement, was a relative nothing burger. It was a lap 1, turn 1 incident. If that's the case, what does Oscar get for, and I consider it a racing incident. I think it was just a case of 4 into 1 doesn't go. But Oscar is the one who committed the cutback that ended up wiping out both McLarens in the sprint. Normally, this wouldn't be a factor. We just expect the team to actually to deal with it internally. Only McLaren has made a point to announce to the world at how they're going to run their team and run their drivers.
It's just left them open to a lot more public scrutiny that they probably did not need to face. And that is, it goes to show you that I think this is what happens when you have a team that is run by Zach Brown. Zach Brown is
the marketing
face
mind.
He is a marketing mind. He is the face of McLaren at this point. He is the public image of what McLaren is, and it's presented in his image. From the way he handles his drivers, from the way he handles his team, from the way he handles appearances in courts in the case of Alex Palou, it all centers back to Zach Brown. He is a bit of an egomaniac, and I think he'd be the first person to admit it as such. Most marketing people are. That comes with drawbacks. Sometimes being the face that runs the place can work out if you're someone like Ron Dennis, because at least he backed it up with winning. Zach is doing that. But if he fumbles this driver's championship, there's going to be a colossal amount of egg on his face, given that this is a McLaren team that has won 12 Grand Prix so far this season already. And as I mentioned to Cam earlier, they've left this too late. Lando Norris is not only the hot hand, he's only 14 points away. Could you imagine as Zach Brown, the CEO or former CEO of Lando Norris's quadrant business, the man who's the CEO of McLaren as a team, walking into its established star's garage and telling him, sorry, Lando, we're shutting this down. We have to protect from Max Verstappen. We're going all in on Piastri to win the championship. To be a fly on that wall.
The chances of that sticking are none.
No. The best chance they've got of their drivers not going rogue is playing this out like they have all year. Because they clearly have bought into this to an extent. Because we've already seen some audacious team order shit from McLaren between now and the last year and a half they've been running what we call papaya rules. The best
giving up wins.
Giving
up positions on track due to issues in pit lane. Correcting strategic screw-ups by swapping the cars. It's something you would never imagine someone like Ferrari or Red Bull doing. Like, nope, our number one driver is our number one driver, and fuck what the other guy thinks.
Say what you will about their policies, Ferrari and Red Bull have had success, the most amount of their success, with a clear 1-2 driver strategy. It's a lot less complicated in theory. McLaren...
Remember McLaren in 2007?
Let's set up... Yeah, that went well, didn't it? Fernando Alonso...
anything you can do, I can do better. I can do anything better than you. Somehow that advertisement landed way, way, way too close to home. And they blew an 18-point lead in the championship with 20 on the board.
Yeah. It could be a case that history is doomed to repeat itself only because McLaren didn't want to take a stance. And in fact, by trying to be quote-unquote more fair, it's dropped both their drivers deeper into a hole because it makes it easier for Max to potentially claw them in. So, no, I actually think the best case scenario now for McLaren is that you have to keep playing this out and you have to hope that both your dudes comply. And look, in fairness, Lando and Oscar have been extremely professional about this. They've not shown any real signs of quote-unquote cracking yet, despite some debatable decisions that McLaren's made along the way. Their best chance is hoping that they can continue to do that. But we have 5 rounds to go. They're separated by 14 points in the standings. You cannot reasonably expect this to go all the way to Abu Dhabi with them in this state. At some point, you've got to let them race, right?
At some point, someone is going to have to lose this championship. It feels like McLaren hasn't. It feels like McLaren hasn't come to reckon with that fact that at some point one of them has to lose the championship, and they really better hope that it's not both of them.
And the weird thing about it is that you had Lando Norris. You told Daniel Ricciardo to piss off and gave him $21 million to go away. You brought in a guy that swept the juniors, 1 FRECA, 1 Formula 3, 1 Formula 2, an S-tier prospect in Oscar Piastri, which you poached under Alpine's nose in a big PR scandal.
More on them in a minute.
Surely, if you were McLaren and you truly believed in what Oscar Piastri could do as a driver, and you believed that your team would one day climb to the top, which they have, in all fairness to them,
yep.
Surely they had to have known at a certain point that this day might come. That you might have both your dudes who are been pretty evenly matched the whole season, are now going to compete for a world championship. Was there no break glass in case of emergency procedure here? Was there no thought about what if this actually works out? That's what I don't understand about McLaren.
It wouldn't have mattered how it would have worked out 4 races ago, because 4 races ago, Oscar Piastri had a 104-point gap to Max. And even me, who picked Max to win the championship, I thought it was dead and buried.
So did I. RJ?
Apropos of nothing in this whole McLaren discussion about the potential for insubordination, drivers going rogue, I'd like to point out that 36 years ago today was the 1989 Japanese Grand Prix.
Oh.
I don't know what chicane that Prost turned into, but it wasn't the Casio Triangle.
And we all remember how that started, right? That was from drivers going rogue. What team did that happen in?
McLaren Honda.
Mm-hmm.
Who can say? Who can say? I think we already covered how good Max Verstappen has been.
Oh, yeah.
I mean...
Sensational.
Yeah. It is as simple as this. If Max has the car, he goes out and wins. There's no ambiguity to it. There's no drama. And there was no drama on Sunday. And that's the thing that makes it plausible, is that if he can keep putting it on pole, because the Red Bull looks to be just straight up the fastest car over one lap now, he puts himself in position to not only get a clean start for himself, but also to, frankly, mess with the people behind him a little bit. He absolutely let off and kind of parked the bus at turn 1 in front of Lando, and that let Charles get around his outside.
They know what they're doing. He knows what he's doing. He's been here crafty before, and it's hard to beat a guy with the distinct combination of ridiculous breakneck speed, excellent racecraft, and the mental readiness to go over the line if necessary. Because we've all seen what Max can do in and out of a car. And say what you will about how he handled 2021, he went over that line, he still won the title. You know,
They both spent plenty of time over that line in 21.
Oh, no kidding. Other things to get through before we get out of here, because we this.
I want to talk about it. What do you want to talk about?
Oh, God.
Alpine, you disgrace.
Hey guys, remember when we were all getting excited about the fact that they're finally not building their own sorry-ass power units, and oh boy, just wait until Mercedes comes and builds their power units for them. This is going to turn this into a world-class organization, because this is the kind of leadership that you only get with the masterful, diabolical genius that is Flavio Briatore. We have a team orders dispute for 17th place in a Grand Prix in which you had no chance of competing in.
Is it bad that I thought this was going to be the thing that took Max out of this race? Because this was happening right in front of him.
They told Franco Colapinto, who had Gabriel Bortoleto behind him in a faster car chasing them down.
Both on fresh tires.
And they said to Colapinto to hold position. What the fuck are they doing?
For P17!
I remember, in 2013, there was a row of whether or not the Caterham drivers were disobeying team orders, and I thought this couldn't be topped.
I was watching that race with a bag of flavor-blasted goldfish in my hand and a lemon-lime Gatorade in bed. And I scored as many points as Alpine did on Sunday, which is 0!
Why? What was the point? What did you stand to gain by telling Colapinto to back down? And then Colapinto ignored it anyway and passed Gasly at turn 1. And
I almost had to run him off the road to do it.
Just... And then, after the fact, they had to put out a public statement saying that Colapinto was fully in the wrong, he's been disciplined, and it won't happen again.
Oh, I'm sure. What? It won't. That you're fighting for 17th place? Oh, I'm sure that it will, Alpine. I'm sure that it will.
What's the point of any of this stupidity? Just completely ridiculous from Alpine. You're not competing for points. You gave up on this season halfway through. Who fucking cares? Honestly.
Both these drivers
You've
deserve
issued
better.
a public statement to your fans saying that we have nothing to play for.
Yep.
And the last few races will be a slog. Well, you were right about that. And that's the first thing that Alpine's been right about in a long time.
And the
Both these drivers deserve better. Hundreds of employees at Enstone and Viry deserve better than this shit. Except for
what
two I can think of right offhand.
What employees at Viry? They're losing all of them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And the weird thing is, it's not even like they've had a truly terrible season. They have 20 points. That's
in the context of being a factory team, they have been abhorrent for years.
Well, of course. But, like,
everybody was saying
it's a weird year.
That old vampire was the only man that could possibly have any success, and that they're better off without Otmar, they're better off without Bruno Firmino, they're better off without Alan Prost and Cyril
Anyone who was
Beatable.
thinking that they were better off without Safnauer needs to be checked into a mental facility now. Never speak on F1 again. Never speak on racing again.
I know he fumbled the Oscar deal, but, like, is
he the one who wrote that contract? Do we know for a fact he's the one who wrote that contract?
I don't
Flavio
even know.
Briatore is a waste. I think he should go apologize to the trees that sustain him.
Are you comparing Flavio Briatore to the Lorax?
I speak for the trees. The trees say to fuck off.
I mean, Dre, there's still good things to take away out of this weekend. Hulken points.
I mean, if anything, it's a crying shame that Hulkenberg was in the middle of that free ride crunch in the sprint, because we haven't mentioned the fact he qualified 4th for that sprint.
Yeah, qualified both Ferraris.
Yeah. Like, he was... And I feel bad for him because Zach Brown called him an amateur because he immediately pinned the blame for that crunch on him, and it completely wasn't. He had nowhere to go.
In the middle of a 4 wide.
Yeah, like, what could Hulkenberg do? He had Alonso trying to send it down his inside. He had Piastri trying to cut back on his outside. It was ludicrous. But no, like, Hulkenberg qualified 4th. It's a shame his sprint was ruined by that. He wasn't a DNF, but he lost his front wing in that crash and had to box for a new one.
Yuki Tsunoda picked it up and carried it all the way to a plus 11 position sprint result. I have no idea how the floor survived that Sauber wing being under it for so long.
Me neither, but yeah, here we are. And yeah, man,
I just find it rich also that Zach Brown is calling Nico Hulkenberg an amateur. When Nico Hulkenberg won the 24 Hours of Le Mans, before Zach Brown's Better project made its first LMP3 appearance in the European Le Mans series.
Yeah, like I said, Zach Brown being the public face of McLaren, he's going to get so much more shit than he probably deserves, quite frankly, because of the fact he is the face that runs the place. A reminder, John Elkann, as president of Ferrari, had to pay out over $140 million in a tax fraud case earlier this year, and no one cares.
Exactly. You know, John Elkann's probably going to push Fred Vasseur out the door if this Ferrari form holds up.
Yeah, probably. But here we are.
Yeah, that seems real smart. One more team principle.
Vote of confidence. They've already given him the vote of confidence that Nottingham Forest gave Big Ange.
Oh, God.
Yeah, anytime you get the vote of confidence, it's an immediate sign you're about to be fired. Fred Vasseur deserves better, and I'm sure he'll find better if he gets pushed out of Ferrari. It's Ferrari.
And it's a shame because it was actually a good weekend for him. You know, relatively speaking, 3rd and 4th in the Grand Prix was a good result.
Lewis Hamilton's weekend wasn't an abject disaster compared to most weekends he's had.
Yeah,
that are Shanghai.
They were terrible in sprint trim and race trim. They were much, much better.
Yeah, they were pretty damn good. Before we get out of here as well, now as mentioned, we can't really give our opinions on this because of our...
We're just going to rate it straight off the press release. Apple and Formula One announced a 5-year partnership that will bring all F1 races exclusively to Apple TV in the United States beginning next year.
Yay! It's an allegedly 5-year, $750 million deal. It's going to be... What we know is it's going to be them lifting F1 TV from North America and just directly implementing it within Apple TV. It'll be no further cost on top of what a Apple TV premium subscription is. I think it's going up to $13 a month pretty soon, but it's just being lifted into that. Apparently a few races would also be given away for non-subscribers as well to get people through the door. 5 of them, according to Cam, which is cool. So we're getting 5 for free. That's nice over there. Can't go wrong with that. And we'll see how it's fully implemented. I have many of thoughts on this. In fact, I might make a separate YouTube short about it because Cam can't give his opinion on it, and I respect the fact that he works for the company in question, but I don't. So more on that. Keep your eyes on social media later on in the week is all I'll say for our full thoughts on that. But yeah, sadly we can't give our full opinions on the show on this one because, well, we respect Cam too much. About time. He's earned his keep off the couch.
Incredible.
Formula One is back this weekend with the Mexico Grand Prix from the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez in Mexico City.
Do you like dirty air? Well,
we
boy,
got the race
we got
for you.
dirty air.
We got some.
Which is a shame because I love the track layout.
It's a great layout. It's a great track. It's just not great for Formula One. So yeah, we are also talking about the fact that Max Verstappen is a 5-time winner in Mexico, arguably his strongest track of them all. We'll see how that plays out. Will Max take another chunk out of the McLarens in a quickly becoming quite tense title race? More on that on next week's show. MotoGP
Worth
review
noting as well
from
last year as well. Norris beat the brakes off Piastri there last year. It's one of Lando's best rounds as well.
Definitely. Could be an intriguing contest. We'll have to wait and see. MotoGP's review of the Australian Grand Prix from Phillip Island is coming up next. And I said F1 will be back next week after Mexico. But until then, I've been Dre Harrison. They've been RJ O'Connell and Cameron Buckley. Until next time, thank you very much for listening. Sayonara.
Howdy, y'all. Later, y'all.
Just load up the Keith Ewan faces.